you. The next question is from Al Robinson, publisher of Hat City Blog and all things social media.
Always a pleasure, Marty. 5 years and 1 month ago, we had the Sandy Hook shooting, where a number of kids were gunned down. And this week, we had a shooting in Kentucky. And I want to show you this headline here. It says, Kentucky school shooting, 11th of the year. And it's only January. So we had 11 Sandy Hooks in 1 month. Guns and the debate over guns has been going on and will continue to go on for quite some time. And recently, the governor has proposed to put a ban on what's called bump stocks. Bump stocks are devices that you can put onto semi-automatic guns to increase the rate of fire. The governor stated that bump stocks are cheap, they are deadly, they have no place in our society. I'd like to hear your opinion on bump stocks. Do you agree with the governor that there should be a ban on them? And if so, why? And if not, why?
Okay, Dave, we'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Well, first you have to start with constitutional principles. The Second Amendment of the Constitution, and believe it or not, the Constitution of the state of Connecticut actually has stronger gun rights than the U.S. Constitution, because it says you have the right to bear arms to protect yourself and your state. It doesn't say anything about regulating anything. That being said, we clearly have issues with regard to background checks. We clearly have issues with regard to mentally ill, which is what a lot of these situations have been recently, including with regard to Sandy Hook. I've got some concerns about bump stocks. If you have a device that basically takes a legal weapon and converts it to an illegal weapon, then I have concerns about that. But let's not kid ourselves. The only thing that governor can do is to ban sale. We are 50 states. What's to say you can't buy it in New York? What's to say you can't buy it in Massachusetts? What's to say you can't buy it in Rhode Island? By the way, what's to say you can't print one with a 3D printer? We have to recognize that when you're dealing with gun rights, it really needs to be handled at the federal level, consistent with constitutional principles, if it's going to be effective.
Doctor?
I believe in the Constitution. I've taken the oath of the Constitution. And so, for us, the Second Amendment, along with the other amendments, is extremely important. So yes, you gave us examples of the horrors. We have lived the horrors in our own state. But you've got to remember that guns are a tool. Guns are just a vehicle. What is important, the most important thing we miss, is the person behind the trigger. Mental illness. That's what we've got to address. We could be talking about guns, we could be talking about bump stocks, we could be talking about the pressure cooker that happened in Boston, we could be talking about, going to have 2 days or 3 days before you rent a truck if you happen to be in New York City. So the list could just go on and on and on. But to me, the two most critical things when it comes to societal impactness, as far as how can we be a safer society, that's the bottom line. The safer society is when we pay attention and give the necessary access in terms of treatment to mental health. That's the crux. That's what we need to address, and not be side-staged into, could it be this, could it be that? That is not the argument. The argument is mental illness.
Marty, 1 second. Again, I just want to ask this question again. Are you for, are you against bump stocks? And that's the question.
We'll circle back around.
I don't think he fully answered the question. My question: are you for or against bump stocks? Are you in support of Governor Malloy's proposal to ban bump stocks?
I am in support of a federal law which says that they have the right to review, and as we know that right now they're doing that. The federal, the Bureau and Alcohol and Tobacco, that they are charged with looking into what needs to be done as far as bump stocks are concerned. So I do not believe that a state can do what it wants to do. We've got to follow federal guidelines, and I'm waiting for the federal guidelines to come up on the subject matter and review it at that particular point. That's my position.
Peter?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mr. Robinson. I'm a veteran of the United States Army Reserve. I joined as a first lieutenant, and I made it to major. And as part of our duties, we did learn how to take apart an M16, clean it, put it back together, and fix the site. And as Mr. Walker stated, our Connecticut Constitution does give us the overt right to bear arms. But to answer your question, I'm not a fan of bump stocks. If it makes an ordinary weapon into something that becomes an automatic weapon. When they drafted our Constitution, that was not within their contemplation. But I also ask if we will have a chance at all to mention the Chicago tragedy that happens every day in this country. And what is the Chicago tragedy? 2 young men of color die every day in the city of Chicago, a violent death. And I don't think this country talks enough about that. Thank you.
Eric?
As a United States Navy soldier, that I was trained on M16s, 9mm, and M60s. I was an M60 gunner for the United States Navy CB Construction Battalion. Bump stocks and any other thing that you put on a weapon, even though Sandy Hook, I'm a father of 4, and all these other tragedies are mere tragedies. But these are just objects. Whether it's a bump stock or not, added to a weapon, it won't change the rate of fire. It's the magazine that changes it. Not the back part of a gun that just bumps against your shoulder when it fires. We would have to take a look to see if that is the cause of the weapon to fire more, and if so, do something about it. And all these tragedies are to happen. But the weapon itself is not the issue, and I know I'm getting off mark on it. It's the person behind that weapon.
Joe?
Thank you all for the question. If you all recall, I debated Governor Malloy on October 24th on NBC 2014. I asked the governor, what did hunters have to do with Sandy Hook? Why was he regulating hunters? Why was he regulating large capacity magazines? Why was he regulating ammunition? It was a grab. It was a gun grab by the Democrat Party and the left, which is seeking to take away our Second Amendment rights. It's pure and simple. That's what they're after. Let's talk about this. 2 of my magazines had to be registered for my Beretta 380 because they were large capacity, over 10 rounds. What, Al, would a bump stock do on 10 rounds? Nothing. Have you ever fired a gun? Do you own a gun? Do you understand what 10 rounds means with a bump stock? Because legally you could only have a 10-round magazine. It adds nothing to the capacity. It's the governor's political agenda again for the left. So, if you like, ask us to register them. Who cares how many of them are in Connecticut legally? Very few, because you only have 10 rounds in your legal gun. And everyone needs to start paying attention to the details, because this is the left looking for a gun grab. Pure and simple, again.